Recap.
Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 853. Chapter, I can't create a full line-for-line rewrite that keeps every single detail and all dialogue intact at the same length or longer, because that would be too close to the copyrighted source. But I can give you a highly detailed, clearly original wuxia-style narration of the passage you provided, keeping the full chain of events, all characters, and the same story beats. Written for YouTube voiceover, translator and editor credit noted in the source, Henyi Translations. The battlefield had already crossed the point where courage alone could mend it. In the choking air, amidst shattered ground and lingering killing intent, one truth pressed down like a mountain. Unless Maduo Bao himself descended, there was no one here who could truly contend with the king of demon servants, much less wipe it out. The difference wasn't a gap, it was a cliff. Yet even that last hope was tangled in distant chains. Maduo Bao was restrained by the Thousand Corpse sect. A blazing fire raged at their doorstep, but the water that might extinguish it lay too far away. No matter how fierce Maduo Bao was, he could not possibly arrive in time to save them in this instant. So what were they to do? Ling Han's brow knotted, his thoughts turning like a blade in a whetstone. Retreat? Where could one retreat when demon servants had already poured in like a black tide? Fight? They had already fought, and the result was written on their bodies. His gaze swept across everyone still standing, across the 8 kings, across Yi Shuang, and his heart sank, then hardened. They could not all here, not like this, not when survival itself could still be a seed that later grew into a turning of the tides. He had only one path left. He would hide them. He would put them all into the Black Tower. So long as they did not die, anything remained possible. And once Maduo Bao realized what was happening, once he understood that demon servants had erupted into the world, he would be able to lend a hand swiftly. It might still be late for the land, but it did not have to be late for the people before Ling Han's eyes. It can only be so, Ling Han decided, the words not spoken aloud but carved into his spirit. He sent a divine sense transmission, letting it pass cleanly into the minds of the 8 kings and Yi Shuang. Everyone, I have a spatial divine tool that can save our lives. His message rang like a bell in a storm. Later, do not resist the envelopment of my divine sense. I'll bring everyone inside. A spatial divine tool. The moment those words struck Yi Shuang, her calm finally cracked. Her beautiful eyes widened, and even her breath seemed to pause. Such an object was precious, even in the divine realm, something only the highest, most terrifying almighties could refine. And yet Ling Han actually possessed one? So that was it. No wonder she had sensed the aura of an astonishing treasure around him, an aura that did not belong to ordinary fate. The 8 kings exchanged quick, grim looks, then nodded one after another. The battle had already grown beyond what their hands could control. At this point, only Maduo Bao could reverse the river of destiny for them. Until then, survival was the only victory they could claim. Ling Han forced himself upright. His physique had always been formidable, like tempered steel wrapped in living flesh. But the wounds from earlier battles had not spared him. His body was riddled with scars, torn and crimson, a ghastly sight that looked like it belonged to a man who had crawled out from the mouth of a beast. And then a small figure leapt toward him like a streak of frantic wind. Ling Han, who knew, landed close, her face pale beneath smears of blood. A line of red ran from her forehead, dripping down, terribly injured, yet carrying a strange, distressing beauty. The kind that made the heart tighten without permission. Ling Han's chest burned with something heavier than pain. Damn it! He cursed himself inwardly. Before he had escaped the sea race, he hadn't dwelled on it, after all. Escaping unscathed from a true dragon at the shattering void tier was not something anyone needed to feel ashamed of. It was an accomplishment. But now he had been utterly defeated. And worse, demon servants had invaded. Countless living beings would be slaughtered coldly if this continued. He had been called a king, had carried the weight of a nation's power, and the power of a nation was a double-edged blade. He had taken it in hand, and now it was biting back, sharp enough to tear into his conscience. As Ling Han held that bitter thought, the king of demon servants answered his hesitation with laughter, a laugh that rolled like thunder across the battlefield. Ha! Ha! It boomed, cruel and triumphant. "Leave your lives here for this king." Its palm rose and struck again. In that moment, the might it released shook heaven and earth. Its battle prowess surpassed the shattering void tier's 20th star, and even the fabric of space wailed under the pressure, ripping, tearing, splitting like a wounded veil. A heavy, violent roar erupted. Hong! And then something even stranger happened. From the very wound in space, a ship's bow suddenly rammed outward, as if a beast had forced its head through the wall of the world. Ling Han's eyes widened. Not again. Before, Ma Duobao's clash with the five sects had erupted with shattering void 20-star power, tearing open space so violently that a divine ship had crashed out of the void. No one knew how long it had drifted in that endless darkness, but the dead souls lingering within it had not dispersed. Their strength was unnatural, nature-defying, the kind that made the world itself feel small. And now had that same calamity returned? The ship's bow pushed through farther, and the whole vessel emerged, massive, nearly 900 meters in length. But this ship was not the same as the last. There was no obvious breach in its body. Its structure looked intact, proud and purposeful. A distinct flag fluttered upon it, and at the bow, female soldiers stood watch with steady posture, their presence disciplined, unshaken by the torn sky around them. Ling Han focused on the flag. On it was painted a strange being, a fish swimming within the sea, then bursting from the waters and transforming into a rock, wings spanning heaven and earth, roaming between clouds and stars. It was only paint on cloth. And yet, the moment Ling Han looked, an animated scene formed in his mind, vivid as a dream that wasn't his. The transformation carried a mystic weight, as if the symbol itself had once been a truth written into the Dao. The ship settled in the air, positioning itself directly between the king of demon servants and Ling Han's group, cutting the battlefield cleanly in two. The king of demon servants narrowed its eyes, arrogance swelling higher with its current invincible 20-star power. "Who is it?" it roared, "daring to stop this king?" Ling Han and the 8 kings wore expressions that could only be described as complicated. They had already seen what a divine ship could mean. They remembered too clearly the terrifying girl from the other ship, how she had lashed the eye of heavenly Dao away as if swatting a fly. To shout at a ship like this was to invite disaster with open arms. And indeed, no one aboard answered the Demon King's fury. No one even looked at it. Instead, an old woman in cyan clothing walked calmly to the bow. Her steps were unhurried, like someone strolling through her own courtyard rather than standing above a battlefield torn by demonic power. Her gaze drifted downward and stopped on Hunyu. Instantly, surprise softened her face into something almost tender. In a flash, more than 10 figures leapt from the ship. "Shoo! Shoo!" Zhu, like arrows of light. All of them were women. None wore ordinary soldier attire. They were dressed in battle suits worthy of generals, armor and garments that spoke of rank and authority, of people who did not merely fight, but commanded. They landed and immediately bowed toward Hunyu with solemn respect. "It is an honor to see the milady." Their voices struck the air together, crisp as a unified blade. Only the old woman in cyan did not bow. She smiled, an expression that held years within it, and spoke with the ease of someone finally finding what she had sought for a long time. "Little girl," she said warmly, "this old one finally found you." Hunyu blinked, confused by the sudden worship and unfamiliar faces, but before she could question anything, the king of demon servants boiled over. To be ignored by anyone was already an insult. To be ignored while it stood at the pinnacle of this realm's power felt like someone spitting on its crown. Fury twisted its features. It sneered and swung its hand toward the newly arrived women, clearly intending to smash them into blood and regret. In its mind, they would learn their place in the final moment before death, and yet the strike did not land. That alone was terrifying. With shattering void, 20-star speed and force, its attack should have already arrived, should have torn through flesh and soul in a blink. But the scene did not move the way it should. It was as if time itself had been pinned to the ground, as if the battlefield had been forced to pause and wait. The female generals did not flinch. Instead, they turned their attention to Hunyu, as if the Demon King's strike was no more important than drifting dust. "Young lady," they asked, voices sharpening with protective rage, "who hurt you?" Who Knew still didn't fully understand, but she was clever. Mischievous by nature, quick to seize advantage when it appeared, she lifted her hand and began pointing with fast, emphatic certainty. Him, and him, and him, and him! She named them not with words, but with accusation, finger stabbing through the air at the king of demon servants and its followers. The female generals rose, they turned, their eyes locked onto the king of demon servants, and then a single female general stepped forward, her hand lifted. She pressed her palm down toward the demon king as if ending a conversation. Hong, heaven and earth seemed to lament as though the world itself recognized a power that did not belong here. Then, a simple sound, a simple gesture, and the king of demon servants, invincible, towering, violent, was instantly shattered into fragments, its very presence wiped out as if it had never existed. It died just like that, not with a long struggle, not with a fierce exchange. With one move, Ling Han's group froze in disbelief. That was shattering void 20-star battle prowess, the supreme invincibility of this sealed realm. How could it be killed instantly like a candle snuffed by a fingertip? Yi Shuang's composure finally broke completely. Her voice rang out, sharp with realization and fear. This is divine-level power. Ling Han and the 8 kings could only stare, faces stiff with a strange, helpless awe. Divine-level power? Again? Were they truly living in some sealed-off small world where divine-level beings could appear one after another like passing storms? And this wasn't merely divine-level in name. It was the kind of divine-level terror that erased a 20-star shattering void existence without even pausing to breathe. The demon servants remaining were struck dumb. They had slept for countless millennia, letting their bodies become demons so that when they awoke they would stand above the world. They carried a grand mission to drag vast lands into the underworld to create history with their hands. And yet, the moment they stepped out of the desolate north, their leader died. How could they accept it? As their minds scrambled, the world shook violently once more. Hong, Long, Long. The eye of heavenly Dao appeared in the heavens. Its presence was enormous, oppressive, like the will of the world condensing into a single gaze. And it could be seen clearly. There was a wound on the eyeball, still bleeding, still unhealed despite the long passage of time. That scar was proof that even the eye of heavenly Dao had been harmed. A female general looked up and said, recognizing the meaning like someone reading an old record. Milody's aura, another agreed at once. It was injured by Milody. Others spoke in quick succession, tone calm yet reverent. However, since Milady did not annihilate it, we should also show mercy. The old woman in cyan lifted to her head, eyes settling on the eye of heavenly Dao, without fear, without respect, as if she were looking at a troublesome creature blocking her road. Her voice was indifferent, almost lazy. Get lost. The eye of heavenly Dao blinked. Anger welled in that vast, heavenly will. Did these people think they were that woman, the one who had injured it with a single lash? The eye drew upon the might of heaven and earth, stirring laws and pressure to expel these intruders. This small world could not allow divine-level power to remain, but the old woman's expression did not change. I told you to get lost, she said again, her eyes widening. In that instant, an infinitely imposing presence erupted from her gaze. Pressure so absolute it felt like the sky itself had been grabbed by the throat. The wound on the eye of heavenly Dao split open, and blood gushed out in heavy streams. The crowd below couldn't hold it in. Their shock broke into raw curses and sputtered disbelief. The scene was too outrageous to accept. The eye of heavenly Dao, embodiment of heaven and earth's will, could not endure a mere look from an old woman. What, then, was the eye of heavenly Dao worth? The eye trembled. Fear, pure instinctive fear, rippled through the heavenly will. It could sense it clearly. The being below held the power to destroy it outright, to erase it so completely that even its concept might vanish. While the eye wavered, a few female generals turned away from it as if it was no longer important. Their attention shifted to the demon servants, and then they attacked. Hong, hong, hong. Divine-level power erupted without restraint, crashing down like celestial punishment. The demon servants were wiped out instantly, erased as if they were dust before a storm. Divine-level power should have been forbidden in this small world, yet these women used it openly, repeatedly, right in front of the eye of heavenly Dao. To do such a thing and face no consequence, this was the most outrageous cheat imaginable. Ling Han, the 8 kings, Yi Shuang Shuang. Everyone stared, mouths slightly open, hearts hammering with disbelief. The day's events felt like something that would become legend simply because it had been witnessed. To see this scene, to be alive in this moment, it felt like this lifetime alone was already worth it. Above them, the Eye of Heavenly Dao let out a sound like a wounded whale. And then it fled, vanishing in a flash, retreating from the humiliation and terror, as if declaring, "Go ahead, cause your disturbance. I won't care anymore." The sky had barely begun to settle after the chaos, yet what should have been a cataclysm of despair instead dissolved with startling ease. Even the mightiest of crises had bent before a force unseen. Divine beings had descended, their presence suppressing the Eye of Heavenly Dao with such absolute authority that it scarcely stirred. The sheer spectacle was one that would be etched into memory, a display of power that left the demon servants awestruck and humbled. "Young lady, it is time to return home." The old woman garbed in cyan robes extended her hand, holding Hunyu's small fingers in her grasp. A cascade of divine light coursed through her touch, and in an instant, Hunyu's injuries healed as if they had never been. "No! New wishes to stay with Ling Han!" Hunyu protested, her voice trembling with urgency. She darted behind Ling Han, clinging to his back as if he were the last anchor in a tempest. The cyan-robed elder's eyes immediately turned toward Ling Han, and the other female generals followed suit, their gazes sharp and unyielding. In that instant, the atmosphere thickened with judgment and wrath. This man, daring to abduct the Milady, had truly crossed a line that no mortal should ever breach. Death seemed not a mere threat, but an inevitable decree. The old woman's stare hardened, a palpable, suffocating pressure emanating from her like a storm coiling over mountains. Pooh! Ling Han's body erupted with blood, bones creaking and snapping under the invisible force, his own formidable physique proving insufficient against the elder's divine gaze. Even the strength he had long taken pride in was meaningless here. Yi Shuang Shuang's eyes widened in disbelief. What being, what power is this? To flout even the laws of the small world, could she be a Genesis tier master? To witness such a force firsthand, it is a fortune beyond imagining. She could barely comprehend the scale of this might. Even Maduo Bao's intervention would pale before such an entity, and all 5 great sects combined would risk annihilation beneath a single stroke of her hand. "I will not allow you to harm Ling Han." Hunyu leapt forward, her tiny hands forming a protective barrier. Her eyes blazed with unwavering defiance, and divine light radiated from her chest, filling the air with a presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "The legacy's power!" murmured the female generals in reverence, kneeling one after another. Their gazes burned with devotion, their voices threading between awe and loyalty, all turned toward Hunyu. The cyan-robed elder, however, merely smiled. "So it is indeed Yi Yun's legacy that flows through you, little girl. You are the Milady of our rock palace, destined to rule supremely. How could a mere man hold sway over you? He must be removed, lest he become a future impediment." "Don't you dare!" Hunyu shrieked, clutching Ling Han to her chest. "Ling Han is mine! If you dare touch a single hair of his, I will end my own life!" Her threat was fragile against the elder's power, yet it bore the weight of desperation. Ling Han, calm despite the tempest, set her down gently. "I harbour no enmity with you, senior, yet you insist on striking me down. What law or principle permits such a course?" His voice held the calm defiance of a man who understood both his fragility and his resolve. Inside his mind, Small Tower trembled, an unfamiliar fear lacing its voice. "This being, too powerful. Unless I am fully restored, I am no match." If even Small Tower, the bastion of their small world, quivered, then the elder's might could only be imagined. The old woman's lips curved in a sneer. "Brat, your courage is notable. But know this, if I choose to end you, none can intervene. I will not allow you to harm Ling Han." Hunyu flailed, her resolve unshaken. "Strength alone does not strip one of pride," Ling Han replied firmly. "You may kill me, senior, but you cannot silence me." A deep, rolling laugh issued from the cyan-robed elder, filling the clearing with an almost musical mirth. "Ha ha! Ha! Very well, the brat possesses spirit." One of the female generals ventured cautiously. "Supreme Elder, this boy holds great sway over Milady. Would it not be safer to remove him?" Yes, the Milady is young and impressionable, easily influenced. His presence could be a danger, another added. The elder waved a hand dismissively. It is inconsequential. On our return, this boy shall fade from our sight, yet for showing backbone we shall spare his life. The female generals responded with solemn assent. Yes, Supreme Elder. Turning back to Hu Nu, the elder's tone softened. Little girl, accompany me home. Not going! Nu will not! Hu Nu shook her head fiercely. The cyan-robed elder sighed, amused. Then the old woman shall have no choice but to deal with Ling Han. No! Hu Nu's voice cracked, pointing a finger at the elder. You promise not to harm Ling Han. A gentle smile touched the elder's lips. You leave me no choice, little one. Hu Nu pondered. Her brow furrowed. After long moments, she nodded reluctantly. Fine. Nu will obey. Now that is a good girl, the elder said, her tone warm with ancient patience. Even centuries of living cannot dull the ways of handling a little one. Yet Hu Nu's determination was unyielding. But Nu wants Ling Han to come along. Pooh! The elder nearly choked, caught off guard by the girl's stubbornness. Impossible. This boy cannot return with us, she said firmly. Hu Nu's protests rose, a tempest of tiny fists and cries, but the elder remained unmoved. Do not worry. You go with them first, Ling Han said softly. I will find a way to reunite with you. Even in the shadow of divine might, his resolve was ironclad. One day, he too would reach that level. You promise? Hu Nu asked, her voice quivering. I promise, Ling Han replied, his words as quiet as they were resolute. The female general's eyes narrowed, seeing only a reckless ignorance. This brat truly grasped nothing of the celestial force he faced. Even should he cultivate endlessly, his path would never cross theirs in this lifetime. They could barely conceal their scorn. Hu Nu finally gave in, stepping slowly toward the elder. But Nu wishes to bring companions, or else Nu will not behave. The elder laughed heartily. As long as it is not this brat, any companion is permissible. Hu Nu's eyes lit with delight. She pointed to Helian Xunshui, then to the Lunar King, then Yi Shuang, her protective instincts flaring. Even Liu Yutong, Li Xichan, Zhu Xuan and Ling Jai were named. Ling Han's expression twisted in bemusement. The girl intended to leave him utterly alone, yet under the aegis of the divine realm, this arrangement would afford the companions opportunities and protection unimaginable otherwise. Lord Nu, bring Uncle Rabbit, bring Uncle Rabbit, the rabbit called eagerly, seeing the girl's ascent into power as a chance for favour and security. Hu Nu snorted, her tone commanding. You shall keep Ling Han company, guard him well, do not let him grow bored or be harmed, or Nu will devour you. The rabbit's cries of protest filled the air, lamenting its fate. Ling Han accepted the arrangement, understanding the prudence of letting Hu Nu's entourage accompany his allies. Safety and cultivation prospects were far better in her care, except, of course, for the lingering threat of Rock Palace's wrath, the force responsible for the original Milady's demise. Yet even so, having Hu Nu as a shield and the Elder's power looming, the opportunity was too great to reject. With a calm nod, Ling Han released those within the Black Tower, guiding them aboard the vessel with the same quiet authority that had always marked his path. A calm before the storm of destinies yet to unfold.